and welcome to a new edition of our local press review coming to you from Nile TV International, and I'm happy to have with me today International Affairs and Relations as well as law expert Ms. Eissa to comment on the news. And we start off with Al Ahram newspaper, where we read that President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi continues his official visit to Cyprus on Tuesday with a trilateral summit between President Sisi, Cypriot President Nikos Anastasiadis, and the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. On Monday, President Sisi arrived in Cyprus, where an official reception ceremony was held for the president on his arrival at the presidential palace in Nicosia. President Sisi held talks with his Cypriot counterpart as well as top Cypriot officials to discuss means of enhancing bilateral relations at all levels in the framework of close relations between Egypt and Cyprus. Well, of course, yesterday was a busy itinerary for the president. He met with the Cypriot president. He even made a speech at the parliament or the House of Representatives. He attended a business forum, and there were so many activities. How do you see the importance and significance of this particular trip?
There are a number of points that are particularly significant within this trip that happened. If you start by the priorities, the most important, we can look at the energy that they spoke about, topic, which is we have a gas that it's common between the borders between us and Cyprus, and this have a lot of strategic influence, both economically and also politically, and also is extended to the European Union. And also they spoke about alliances, and since Cyprus is in the European Union, we need to have good friends with Egypt within the Union. This is going to enhance our position within the alliance and international relations within the arena. Also, they discussed the terrorism and illegal immigration. However, as much as they discussed the economic reforms and how they're going to work on the import and the export and having more opportunities, employment, this by default will reflect on the illegal immigration issue. So they discussed a lot of topics, but every topic of them is like a chain. They're all interconnected. And also I was particularly impressed that they spoke about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict, also keeping in mind that recently Trump, they asked for Washington, they didn't give the authorization for the PLO. And it's causing a lot of stress, and no one is understanding where is it going. Are you following the new plan for Israel where Trump and the US president is supporting them? Is Palestine undergoing certain pressure? So having discussed this reflects how Egypt is a key player when they talk about something critical in the Middle East. President Sisi is around and is discussing it.
Well, actually, also the president attended the business forum and they discussed investments. How can we enhance the Egyptian Cypriot investment and encourage them to come into Egypt?
Of course, number one, we have to create a safe environment. No one would be encouraged to invest in a country that it's not safe. So assuring and giving indicator that it's a safe environment is a priority. The second thing is the thing that we have the border and the strategic location is always in our benefit. So it can play a big role. So also for Cyprus to think that Egypt is a safe environment for foreign investors to pop in, we have to ensure and give this indicator within our local investors within the country. If they're safe, they're going to by default reflect on the outside that Egypt is a safe environment. Maybe we should join the train.
Well, we're still with the president's visit to Cyprus, and from Al-Yom Al-Sabi newspaper, we read that President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met on Monday with the Speaker of the Cypriot Parliament, Dimitris Siloris, at the Cypriot Parliament premises. The two sides held bilateral talks on ways to strengthen cooperation between the two countries, especially at the parliamentary level, as well as the efforts exerted to develop relations between Egypt and Cyprus. During his speech to the Cypriot Cypriot Parliament, President Sisi praised the level of relations between Egypt and Cyprus. He also added that Egypt was and will remain the second homeland of Cypriot citizens who have lived there for many years. Actually, during his speech, the President tackled many issues, including that of the importance of the reunification of Cyprus or the Cypriot island. So how do you see that issue as well?
I see, of course, that the fact that the president said a speech in the word within the parliament of any country is like a sacred place. It's not easy for any personnel or authority to enter and give a speech. And of course it's going to play in our favor, the speech that he's supporting them with the conflict between Turkey and Greece and all of these issues. It's going to work in our favor. Like, we're taking their side, we're supporting them, and they need someone from the other side of the Middle East, sharing border, to come over and speak up in their favor. And I think this also emphasizes how Egypt recently is playing a dynamic role worldwide. We're giving this image, like President Sisi is having a very busy schedule. He's coming back to Egypt to meet President Al-Hariri, and it's a very heated topic what happened in Saudi Arabia. Everyone's speculating, was President Hariri forced to resign from his position? What is the hidden agenda behind it? Is he kept in Saudi Arabia? And Michel Aoun, the president of Lebanon, assured everyone and gave the impression that he's being kept. And according to international law treaties, after 11 days the president resigned, didn't return. It causes a lot of commotions. And then President of France asked him to come over, which is a hegemonic power. After France saving this situation and giving comfort to Lebanon, President Hariri is coming to meet President Sisi in Egypt. This is huge. It tells a lot that we are a key player, and something that's worldwide is grabbing our attention. We're in it, and President Sisi is giving the world also a certain image that we are back in the game, and Egypt is a solid foundation in the Middle East.
Yes, indeed. And moving to Egyptian-Romanian relations, and from Al-Yom Al-Sabi newspaper, we continue. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail met on Monday with visiting Romanian Minister for Business, Environment, Commerce and Entrepreneurship, Ian Lufa. During the meeting, the Prime Minister reviewed the economic and social reform program being implemented by the Egyptian government, which contributed to the improvement of a number of economic indicators. The Prime Minister also expressed hope that the visit will contribute to create more opportunities for bilateral cooperation and increase the volume of trade exchange between Egypt and Romania in various fields. So how do you see that meeting? And actually it's one of several meetings that the Prime Minister held yesterday. How do you see first the importance of the Romanian-Egyptian relations? And we see that there are actually different scopes. There are economic, there are business, there are environmental. So actually there are so many things that they discuss together.
Definitely, it shows that we're branching out economic-wise, because the country is desperate need in economic reform, especially what's happened with the dollar, and we're a country that the import and export, we're not having the balance that countries usually have. However, my take on it, you said like economic reforms, but we don't really focus a lot on economic planning and economic assessment, which is very essential. Why? Because you need to lay out the outcome. Layout cannot be possible with just the word of economic reform. It's such a cliche word. We need economic assessment and economic planning. Why? So you can have a potential benefit. What is your gain out of it? This is very essential. Instead of just jumping into something with enthusiasm, economic reform, it needs to undergo more detail. We need to be more detailistic, so we have a more structured outcome.
Well, maybe that's why also on the same day the Prime Minister met with the Minister of Manpower, Mohammed Safan, Minister of Parliament Affairs, Omar Marwan, Chairman of the Federation of Industries and Parliamentary Majority Leader, Mohammed Swedi, to review a number of issues related to the development of business environment in Egypt. The importance of such cooperation to reach the point that you were talking about right now.
First of all, just not about Romania. What you've just said, it will set an example. It shows that we mean business. And it will encourage other countries who are potential for economic reforms and business reforms with Egypt to join also. So it gives like a good image. It's like we're marketing ourselves also for other countries.
Also, during that meeting, three major sectors were emphasized on: electricity, the steel industry, and the leather industry. And there were particular emphasis on the heavy and steel industry, means of promoting it and reviving it. So how do you see that?
I think this is very essential. The three things that you mentioned, Egypt needs alliances and needs a boost in it, especially that is going to help the country in different levels, economic-wise, employment-wise, and it will create more job opportunities for the youth, which means more revenue for the country, which means also that we're going to have more income and stability within the region. So it will not be as, Egypt will not be as heated, I mean, like people-wise, because when people are sufficient enough economic-wise and having job opportunities, it creates political stability also.
Also, Dr. Sahar Nasr was busy. So from Nile News, we read that Minister of Investment and International Cooperation, Dr. Sahar Nasr, concluded her visit to Kuwait by holding a meeting with members of the Egyptian Kuwaiti Cooperation Council. The meeting was attended by head of the Kuwaiti side in the council, Mohammed Jassim, and a number of Kuwaiti investors. The minister stressed that Egypt is witnessing positive development in favor of Kuwaiti and foreign investors, and that's also a follow-up of what we were talking about, whether the economic reform or the promotion and development of our industry is investment and investors in Egypt. How do you see this particular visit and the importance of the Gulf and Kuwaiti investments in the country?
I think Kuwait is a very good place to aim at from Dr. Sahar Nasr. Like it's very smart to aim at Kuwait because they have good economic standards and they don't have political instability within the region that would trouble any reforms or any bilateral treaty that would happen. And also they're talking about the refining factory, and this is essentially needed in Egypt, and this is like very visionary, and this is looking forward. So I'm very optimistic about the visit, and I think it will have very positive outcome.
Now we will be moving to Syria. And from Nile News, we continue reading that the Syrian army and its allies began combing the city of Abu Kamal in eastern Syria after they took control of the city with the withdrawal of the Daesh terrorist group. But the fighting was still ongoing on Monday between the Syrian forces and the Daesh terrorists in some pockets in the north and northeast of the city. The Syrian army declared victory over the Daesh terrorist group in Abu Kamal earlier this month, but the terrorists then staged a counterattack using their hidden cells in the town. Driving Daesh terrorists from Abu Kamal means only a few villages along the Euphrates and patches of nearby desert, as well as isolated pockets in other parts of the country, remain under the Daesh control. How do you see the progress of fighting the Daesh terrorist group in Syria, and how can it be handled?
Definitely, like by paperwork and statistics, there is progress. But I'm extremely frustrated how Daesh doesn't end. I remember the same time last year we predicted like by Jan they will end. And the international coalition that's fighting Daesh also predicted so. So there is progress, but it doesn't want to end. Why? Because they're not solely fighting the fight. There are other factors that are creating an obstacle. You have other alliances going in, backing terrorist group and backing things that is hindering the progress. So there is a progress, but as long as there are other motives and other countries backing the rebellion and backing terrorist group within Syria, it's going, and Daesh is going to hinder the process, of course. So I think there need to be consequences. Like the international community needs to make up their mind that they are backing the legitimate state of President Bashar al-Assad, full stop. Hence, they need to take an action plan. An action plan is everyone should back the peace and stability within Syria, and everyone should create consequences in any country against that, working against it. There has to be penalty or consequences. Those government that's funding the rebellion and terrorist group. It will not end with we're having two parties fighting one another. Obviously, one party is winning. The other wing, what you're going to do about it? You have to do something to tame it. Yes. You have to put consequences, not like the United Nations does with naming and shaming, something more serious. So they would stop.
The problem with the financing is that all those countries which we mentioned or that we're suspecting they are financing it are denying that they are financing it, and until we really have a solid proof, then sanctions on these countries are sort of will be quite difficult. So we have always to resort to diplomacy, which is another tricky element. So how do you see that?
I think it's a very tricky element, but Bashar al-Assad was very smart. He used it in his advantage. When he said he's going to do the peace talk and gathering everyone, obviously he was just buying himself some time to gain more land. So within Syria, I think now there's no place for diplomacy. Everyone knows what's going, because it has to do a lot with ideologies. Like what's happening with Hussein and Iran and Yemen, all of this. Everyone is the main factor, the root cause is ideology. I'm a Shia, I'm backing the Shias because the Sunnis, the Saudis, Arabians are fighting the Houthis because they're Shia. I'm Iranian and I'm Shia. My people are getting the same ideology, are getting bashed. So they go ahead and support them. So the root cause is all about ideologies here.
Yes, indeed. And from Al-Yawm Al-Sabi' we will be moving to Iraq, which is another hotspot. And from Al-Yawm Al-Sabi' we read that Iraq Supreme Court on Monday declared that September's referendum on independence in the autonomous Kurdish region in the north of the country was unconstitutional. A statement said the court made a decision declaring the referendum held on September the 25th, 2017 in Iraqi Kurdistan unconstitutional and cancelled all the results and consequences that resulted. Monday's legal move was the latest stage in a crisis sparked by the referendum, which resulted in a yes vote for independence in the Kurdish area. Earlier, the United Nations Security Council urged the Iraqi government and regional leaders in Kurdistan to set a timetable for talks to end the crisis. Now, this is actually another ongoing crisis. How do you see that and how do you read it?
I see that we need to examine the timeline. For the start, Kurdish people are, Kurdish wanted to gain their, their split and be divided, separate state from Iraq because they were empowered. They thought they're sufficient enough because they have petroleum. And as a result, they aim to get their own independence. But however, lately in the news you're reading now, they said they respect what happened and they respect the court result. They did not respect the court result because they know that the referendum they're not entitled to. They understood the boundaries of their environment. They started to have penalty, consequences, like I was saying later. They have the borders, they control the borders, and they're going to control the petroleum selling that they're so proud of that made them pro this move. So once you restricted the two things that were encouraging them, they felt they're being trapped. That's why when the court said it's saying that it's not allowed and what the referendum are asking for should not be entitled to, they said we respect the court result.
Yes,
so they need to be more smart about it.
Yes, actually, there are so many things ongoing in the Middle East, and we hope things get resolved. I'd like to thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Sama Eissa, the international law expert as well as international and foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much for this interview. Well, and that brings us to the end of our local press review for today. But I will be leaving you with a report where a celebration to honor the media figures who participated in the coverage of the World Youth Forum in Sharm el-Sheikh was held in Maspero under the auspices of the head of the National Media Authority, Hussein Zain. More in the following report, and then it will be followed by our top stories.
Under the auspices of the head of the National Media Authority, Hussein Zain, a ceremony was held in Maspero to honor the media figures who participated in the coverage of the World Youth Forum in Sharm el-Sheikh. All the government and state institutions depend on Maspero's coverage. The recent World Youth Forum is a proof, and the youth forums that were held in Alexandria and Ismailia are also a proof. All the media figures working in private channels and making it successful channels have grown up in Maspero. We are capable of providing a professional coverage. The news sector's channels are capable of competing depending on its human resources by its correspondents, directors and presenters. They have the ability to develop Maspero and to push it forward.
I was really honored to share in the coverage of the World Youth Forum, heading a delegation of Nile TV International to the forum. Well, it has been really very important, honorable moments when you see the president himself, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, paying special attention to the youth, attending himself the sessions, and you could see also decision makers all around. For Nile TV, it has been really special because you know lots of foreign dignitaries and the youth also who came from all over the world were speaking in foreign languages, English and French. That's why we were extending messages throughout the whole world through Nile TV.
The World Youth Forum is a platform built by promising youth that sends a message of peace, prosperity and harmony to the whole world.
Actually, the preparation started a week before the forum. We had to be there, we needed to study all the subjects that we were talking about because I was also moderating sessions. So it was a lot of hard work, but there was a great team of the PLP who made the whole experience much easier experience, more enjoyable as well.
It was a great responsibility because the section of the news section give us the permission to have interviews with all the youth who are in the forum. When we see the youth and their spirit in the forum, we made good interviews with the whole guests from Russia, from Germany, from Italy, and from Palestine and Lebanon.
Honoring Nile TV for the special coverage of the World Youth Forum is not the first credit the TV station gets. Nile TV is the first English and French speaking channel in Egypt. This is Abir Metwali reporting for Nile TV.